Hello, Facebook fans. Here we are again. Like I told you, Table Talk with Roland is all about information dissemination. And today we're up in Georgia, where we got the great state chairman for the state of Georgia, Mr. Vincent Crawford. Sir, we appreciate you just taking time out to talk to us here at the table.
Thank you for the invitation. We appreciate it. We appreciate it. We got some new and exciting things coming next year.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm looking forward to it myself. I think Georgia's on the cusp, doing some big things.
Yes.
Yes, sir. And I know we've all had this pandemic that hits us, and if you could just talk about the effects of that on the state of Georgia bodybuilding. We'll just go from there.
Okay, yeah. We were only able to do probably two. We only ended up doing two of our approximately 5 or 6 shows that we have in the state of Georgia, and that was it's going to be 3. And that started with the Georgia in July, and we did Linda Murray's show, and then we will have Lee Haney's show in November, and that will be the end of the shows for us for this season. It was really a struggle because it all was determined by the venue. Because some venues you could have a total number of people, but it had to include competitors and the audience. And so a lot of promoters were not able to have an audience, but they could have, a great deal of competitors, and that kind of dug into the cost of doing a show and the return on doing a show.
Right.
So, but we were able to come up with some guidelines here in Georgia that went beyond the guidelines that the state required, and we implemented those guidelines at the Georgia in July, and we did them again at the Linda Murray show in Savannah.
Yes, sir.
We implemented those guidelines that went beyond, and then we'll do the same for the Lee Haney show, just to make sure the competitors are safe, and that when people do come to the event, that they're safe as well.
Yes, sir. And that you brought up a good point. The NPC is it covers the entire world. And one thing we do not violate, well, Mr. Mannion, Jim Mannion, as well as Tyler Mannion, they gave us guidelines. And we will not violate CDC or the governor or the mayor. But like the chairman just said, we go over and beyond what the requirements are, just to make sure that people
just as an example, when we were in Savannah, so we had I had to let the national office know there was this good tension between the governor of Georgia and the mayors.
Wow.
And so the mayor of Savannah had tougher restrictions than the state did, but it was a state-run venue, the convention center. So we went in and we actually talked with the city, and we spoke with them about what we were going to be doing, and they were okay with it. And we met with the convention center and went through every step, every chair where it was going to be placed, and the event turned out real well.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent.
but we wanted to make sure, because that was the first time the NPC would be in Savannah, that show this year. And so we wanted to make sure that we were guests that were in compliance, and so we can get an invitation back.
Correct.
So,
Correct. And like I said, it was an excellent show, excellent turnout. And now it's time to get ready for the Lee Haney show. If you would talk about that.
Yes, Mr. Haney, we've done a little bit of finalizing our judging panel and some other things. I think he's going to move that show now back out to College Park, back out to the convention center.
Okay.
I talked with him the other day, and that's where we're going, back out to the convention center. And we're looking forward to it. That's going to be interesting just to see what's still in play in terms of requirements on the venue. But right now, you got to remember we have the Chicago Pro.
That's right.
That's coming to Atlanta, right? The Chicago Pro will be in Atlanta, and it will be at the convention center. So it's going to be interesting to see, and that's October 16th and 17th, to see what requirements of then they will require in October, and see if those same things are going to roll over in November.
Wow. So that's something speaking of the Chicago Pro, now notice the name is called Chicago Pro, but it's happening here in Atlanta. So how did it end up here in Atlanta?
I think the New York Pro ended up in Florida. A lot of shows up north could not be held because they're not permitting mass assembly of people.
Gotcha.
In New York and certain areas. So a lot of those shows started looking to the south where we had a little more relaxed environment. As long as you met the social distance requirements, then you were okay. And so that's what happened. Like the Teen Universe, that's going to be held over I think in South Carolina.
Wow.
And that's usually held in New Jersey. And so that's going to be held in the South. The New York Pro they just finished is going to be, and the Chicago Pro is going to be held down here. Of course, they moved the Nationals from Miami to Orlando.
Wow.
And part of that was because of the restrictions. That's where you get into those local restrictions with the city versus the state. And so they had to move it to Orlando due to the COVID restrictions.
Wow, now Georgia got something that's very interesting going on. You got Linda Murray, which for those of you who don't know, she is eight-time
Miss
Olympia. And you got Lee Haney, which is also
eight-time
Miss Olympia, which says a lot about the state of Georgia,
Yes.
about what they offer and them coming here to put on their show. So those of you that don't, you youngsters out there that don't know who Linda Murray is and Lee Haney is, Google them. I guarantee you'll be impressed with what they have done. But again, sir, just for them to choose the state of Georgia.
And both of them are incredible. They've been ambassadors for the sport of
Yes, sir.
bodybuilding. And Lee is just a great ambassador. He travels all year, go to various shows, national and local shows, promoting the NPC and promoting the sport. Linda the same way.
Right.
She does a lot of hers through Wings of Strength. And so the both of them have just been incredible ambassadors for the sport and making sure that it carries on. So yeah, and Linda actually lived in Georgia for a good while.
Gotcha,
Matter of fact, the reason she wanted to hold the show in Savannah because she lived in Savannah for a little while.
Gotcha. As I recall, Linda's husband was in the military.
Yes.
And he was actually stationed at Fort Benning, which that's where we're from, Columbus. They had a gym there for a while.
Yes.
So I think she's in love with the state of Georgia
Yes.
quite a bit.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But again, you guys Google who that is and you'll find out. Well, sir, you being the state chairman, talk a little bit about the role of the state chairman.
Well, I was the vice chairman first, and I'm also a head judge, a national judge, and a IFBB pro judge. And so when I became chairman, of course, my vice chairman is Chip Maynard White. And one of the things I did when I was vice chairman, I did all of the show operations. I made sure all of the shows were in compliance with the NPC. That's from registration to the whole show itself, pre-judge and night show. And that was my job. And so I appreciate Chip because Chip has taken that over as vice chair and making sure the operations go. What I basically do now is I have a great team here in Georgia, expediter, scorekeeper. We have a whole staff of people that got great compliments for coming to the Linda Murray show and doing a great job of making sure everything ran very smoothly. And so what we try to do is take our staff, communicate with the promoters about what's going to be needed for the show, what the promoter need us to do, and make sure that everybody's on the same page. And that's one of the things I want to make sure happen next year. By getting the schedule out early, Mr. Mannion did permit us to start lining up shows for next year.
Excellent.
And getting, because some jurisdictions are a little bit ahead and they're starting to advertise already for next year. So we want to make sure that we're doing that, but we wanted to organize everything this year, in preparation for next year.
Yes, sir. And I guess the blessing in disguise was that you came up as the vice chairman,
Yes.
running everything.
Yeah.
So now that you are the chairman, you knows how things supposed to happen, and that's pretty awesome.
Well, and there was a time when I show up to the show, I'm the head judge. You're making sure the show operate, and you're doing all of these things, and it becomes a little overwhelming. And I just appreciated the fact that I had people that wanted to come in and help. And so, the last 2 years of being the vice chair, we really just had great people coming in and wanting to help and wanting to take over some of the things, and it felt good to just show up and
Yes,
just sit
sir.
at the table and be a head judge. So
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, for those of you that never competed before or even thinking about competing, and for those of you that has a stigma that think that competing is all about bodybuilding, we have several different categories, divisions that people could compete in to fit their particular body style.
yeah, the one I got into bodybuilding is kind of weird. I was my profession was I'm a lawyer, so I was a trainer in a gym.
So don't mess around. He's a lawyer, and now he's a judge, a true judge. So don't be messing around.
So I was a trainer at Powerhouse Gym in Augusta, Georgia, and I was training people. And this guy came up and he says, "Have you ever done a show?" And I said, "No." What do you mean a show? He says, "A bodybuilding show." I said, "No." And he says, "Well, it's a shame that you train people and you don't even train yourself to do a show." And I kind of ignored it. And then the next time, on another occasion, I was at home in Savannah and I'd gone to the gym, and this guy came up and he says, "Well, do you compete?" And I said, "Well, no, I don't compete." He says, "Well, you should." I said, "Well, it's not one of those things I've ever thought about." And he says, "Well," and this is what got me. He says, "No one will give you a trophy sitting home." And I said, "Wow, and let me think about this thing." So, back then we didn't have, videos and social media and any of that stuff. The only thing you had was the magazine.
Right.
So I went and picked up one of those reader magazines and just started reading on dieting, the exercises and what you should do, prepare for a show. So I ended up doing a show in Augusta, and I got first. No, I did a show in Savannah first, and I got third, and I came back and the next week and did a show in Augusta and got first. And then I was with bodybuilding NPC for like 14 years,
Wow.
15 years. My last show was the Georgia in 2005.
Wow.
But I tell people now that challenge yourself. I think you should do a show. I think because you learn your body.
Correct.
You learn mentally what you can take and what you can't take, and you learn discipline.
Yes, sir.
And those three things, I think, change you as a person. And you can transpose those things over into any aspect of life, just being disciplined and doing anything.
Right.
And so I tell people, just don't work out all year just to work out. Just challenge yourself. Say, I'm going to do a show. Make it a bucket list thing.
Exactly. And I think competing allows you to get reacquainted with yourself.
Yes.
Because somewhere along the line, we kind of lose ourselves, especially in this fitness world.
Right.
But like you just said, you find out, who you really are.
Yes.
Discipline-wise, how bad you want it. And that's what the sport of bodybuilding does. The NPC governs wide span, wide area, as I think I'm using the right word. How big is the NPC, and what do the acronym NPC stand for? For those of you that don't know,
it's the National Physique Committee, and the headquarters is in Pittsburgh. The president is Jim Mannion. The vice president is Tyler Mannion, and we have what is called districts, and each state is a district. We are the Georgia district of the NPC. But then you have the NPC now, what is called the NPC Worldwide, which covers Europe, South America, and all of those countries. And so what we're seeing is it's a huge organization, and then you have the IFBB Pro League, which the NPC feeds into the IFBB Pro League. So the NPC, you can have in each district, you can have anywhere from 6 shows in a district to 20 shows in a district. I know Texas At one point, had like 27 shows
Wow.
in the district. And so what we're going to do in Georgia, one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to branch us out in the state for border shows.
Gotcha.
And like your show, Tri-City is going to be, and that's, in Columbus, and that's border of Alabama. We're going to look at North Georgia, and then we have Linda Murray in East, and then we have a show in the South. And so I want to branch out so that we can, our competitors go in those states and compete, so why can't we do the same? And we're one NPC, so giving people the options to compete in some of our shows. So that's what we're doing. And I think also the NPC has broadened itself to, I would say, various body types. We had men's bodybuilding, which was the foundation.
Correct.
And then we branched off into this thing called men's physique. And that is a guy that's not going to put on a whole bunch of muscle, but, have the abs and the chest and the arms, the beach body. And then the problem was we had men physique guys that were a little too big. They looked like bodybuilders,
Right.
but they didn't have enough muscle to maintain as bodybuilders.
Correct.
But they were too big for men's physique. So then
Right.
we come up with classic men's physique,
Right.
which is another body type.
Right.
And the same thing with women. We started out with women bodybuilding, and then we moved to women's figure, and then figure women. Some of them were just a little too. They were not big enough to be bodybuilders, but they were too big to be figures. So we came up with women's physique.
Right.
And then we have bikini, which is a whole nother division all to itself. But I think what the NPC and Jim Manning has done is they have adjusted for the times for, number one, how people train, because a lot of guys are not in the gym. Remember the days of hardcore gyms where people going in and lift, you're starting out with 100-pound dumbbells, and that's not what a lot of people are doing these days. There's a different kind of training aspect. And so the organization has adjusted itself to the times.
Right. And see, there you have it. Again, the NPC is not just for the like you said, the hardcore bodybuilder. We branched out and we cover all different shapes and sizes for anyone, male or female, that wants to compete. So listen up out there. There's a division for you. You just got to get with someone and let them tell you where you probably fit in. But first of all, like the chairman said, you got to do a show in order to find out where you fit in, because you got to start somewhere. Well, sir, we thank you for coming out, for giving us this opportunity to come.
Well, thank you for the invitation to
sir.
Table Talk. I really do appreciate it, and hopefully we'll get a chance during the season next year to meet again, and I can just update people.
Yes, sir.
Probably at the beginning of the season. We do have, probably in February of next year, we will have our opening meeting. We typically have it here at House of Pain.
Okay.
And we invite promoters from other states and other jurisdictions, vendors, and everybody to come out. We have a posing camp.
Yes.
We have 2 days of events. One of the things I want to mention is that first night, Friday night, is that we have a round table with true novice. Those are the people that have never competed.
Yes.
And we just sit around a table and we just talk about bodybuilding and talking about them, coming into bodybuilding and some of the things they can do.
Wow.
And last year went over really well. We had about 35 people.
That's awesome.
That we just sat around a table, And so I think that part of that is just removing that intimidation factor, and just relaxing people that, you can do this. It's not that big of a deal. So,
yes, sir. So those of you that don't know what true novice is, that has never competed before, never. And you just breaking the ice with them so that they can feel comfortable getting on stage. And I think that's very, very important, because that becomes their foundation and they just go from there. So
well, bring Table Talk over.
I will, sir. I guarantee.
And our opening meeting and interview some of them, we'd appreciate it.
Yes, sir. I sure will. Will. And see, that's why this table is portable, so we can come and go wherever we want to go, just to get the word out, information dissemination. Again, sir, I know you're a busy man. You are the state chairman, head judge, and an actual judge. Yes. So I know that schedule is completely completely busy, but again, we appreciate you taking time out to do this, and I feel like some great information was put out today, and people just got to grab it and go with it.
Yes.
So we will do this again when it's time to put more information out about
Okay.
the state of Georgia and everything that's going on.
We appreciate
So
it.
again, sir, we appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.